Here we are at another season of Star Trek Voyager, the third one. Clay, how are you?
I'm good. I can see the writing on the wall. Janeway is starting to get her hair cut in this episode. I don't think she falls through with it yet, but it's coming.
It was it's the weird season opener where the haircuts haven't happened yet, and they realized they had to do it, so we're just going to do it naturally in canon, in universe. Maybe it's not the first haircut. There's been quite a few haircuts on Star Trek, I guess. Mr. Mott, the barber on TNG.
There's a barber on TNG?
Yeah, he's that blue fat guy who he's in a couple of episodes.
Oh, Mr. Mott. I don't remember that
guy. I was mostly disappointed that this episode didn't just fully embrace a runner of Janeway eating more and more disgusting things while screaming at people, "You want to disobey me, motherfuckers?"
There was some like A-level, we know nothing about surviving in the wild, but we're going to use what we've learned from television logic in this.
Yeah.
For instance, when Chakotay all of a sudden acts like Paul Atreides, and he's like, if you sweat too much, you'll lose your water. So make sure to conserve your energy. And then Janeway starts eating bugs, and it's like, this is all stuff that people say. This is like Michael Scott territory when Michael Scott gets lost in the woods.
Yeah. They're so far removed in this universe to not have anything. It's I guess we can get into that, but yeah, Janeway not even eating the bugs was such a big letdown. It was like, if you're going to lecture these people and say this is an order that you have to eat these things, you have to shove a handful in your mouth and chew them on
I know.
camera.
I was expecting her to do that, but she didn't. I did really appreciate the order though. She's like, and if anybody says no, you tell them to eat the fucking bugs.
You want some of me, Harry? She just seemed angry at them. It didn't seem appropriate to be angry at the crew in that situation. The people can eat what they want. Harry found some eggs.
Captain, these look gross. I will fucking kill you, Kim.
Should have cracked that egg open and just guzzled it like she's Rocky in the training for her boxing match or something. This is Basics Part 2. The beta version. It is episode 1 of the third season of Star Trek Voyager. It came out on the 4th of September, 1996. What would I have been? I would have just been turning 9. This is 2 of 2 in the Basics arc. 7 of 9. Wow, look at that. Of the Seska arc.
What does that mean?
She must get referenced in 2 additional episodes coming forward.
Is there such thing as Star Trek numerology? Did we just stumble onto something?
There might be. We might be hitting the deepest crevices of knowledge here. This is
like, you know how when you look at the original folios of Shakespeare's plays, like depending on what letters are capitalized, it reveals a secret clue to who actually wrote them.
Yes, and it all ties back to the Masons and things like that. It's all very convoluted.
That's the good stuff, baby.
It's 3 of 3 in Suder's Penance, which is a great sub-arc name, written by Michael Piller, which surprises me. I thought Piller was gone at this point, but I guess I'll have to revisit what my history is. Directed by Weinrich Colby, in universe dates 50032.7, which is 2372, and apparently 2377. Or 73. I guess we crossed the new year in this episode, interestingly. With the
maybe like all of these other shows where we don't know how much time has passed, they were actually on that planet for a year.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering why that's known. Or is that just a stardate calculation that's funny? I don't know.
I have no idea.
In Basics, Part 2, with the Kazon-Nistrim in control of Voyager, the crew must return to basics. Oh, I get it. In order to survive on the harsh world inhabited by alien natives and vicious predators. Meanwhile, Suder and the Doctor assist Paris's attempts to retake Voyager. Season premiere. Well, it wasn't as big of a letdown as I thought from the first one. I thought this one was going to be a much worse episode, and I thought it was kind of the same. It was pretty much even-keeled with the first Basic Part 1, which ended last season.
Yeah, my... They do that thing a little bit, though, that they tend to do in these shows where sometimes the second half is kind of a little bit narratively removed from the first half. Like, we don't really see much of the Kazon or Makushla or like
Yep.
what they're up to, you know?
Yeah.
Like they took the ship and then that's kind of it. We don't really get to see what the next step is for them.
No, I guess we're just to assume that they're using it to win their war against the rest of the Kazon, but we don't. I mean, because anytime that you're most of the time you're on the ship, you're spending it with Suder and the Doctor as opposed to the Kazon.
Yeah. Which does kind of come to my big takeaway from this is I think there's too much planet stuff and not enough Suder stuff.
Yeah, that's the big takeaway. I didn't even really mind the planet stuff, but it's not great, but it's
yeah.
I kind of see them both in some ways. The planet stuff is just a less interesting version of the problem with the Suder stuff, which is that I think they're both underbaked a little bit. Like I think I know it was probably based on Durf's availability last season or maybe something like that, because I just think that character needed more episodes than 2 episodes.
Yeah. Oh, well, I wish they hadn't killed him. I mean, he's such a fascinating character. I mean, I guess it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of the only way you can, it's sort of the way the story gods kind of tell you it has to end with him, is he can't survive this. But it's too bad that we didn't get more time with him because he was very, very interesting, and I wish they had given him more to do. Yeah,
he's a good performance. I liked him. Him and the Doctor are good. I like the idea of what they're doing there, which is that he's trying to redeem himself. I do think you needed to see a little bit more of his struggles to be fixed through a couple episodes. That would have made it a little bit more, because there's kind of a lot here in this episode that I think works better on a scale where, like even I'm kind of all over the place, but even down to the ending, right, where Seska dies and she dies next to her baby, and then Kala comes in and he takes the baby and leaves. I was thinking, in a modern drama that was like if there was like an HBO drama that ended that way, it's like a devastating ending sequence, that's like really sad and there's like a lot of like tragedy mixed in there, and like you feel sad about the baby. The problem with the Voyager and Star Trek episodic structure is that it just doesn't have the time to develop to where you feel anything when it happens.
Oh yeah, Yeah. Like I was surprised that Maj Kala gave a shit that Seska was dead.
Yeah, I was too, but it kind of makes sense in retrospect. I don't think you spend enough time with them to really get that from him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they had that relationship where you got your friends who are a couple who just constantly argue with each other, and then they're just like, no, that's just how we flirt. Like I guess it was one of those where
the heart grows fonder with absence, I guess. Is the thing. Yeah,
his constant belittling and insulting of her is just how he shows love, I suppose.
Yeah. I feel there was just moments like that mixed in, and I think Suder is kind of the same thing. Like if Suder had been a character that we had watched and seen his struggles to deal with his psychopathy and things like that, and there was actually like a really good redemption arc where, I was thinking that a great season arc for him would have been if he was just if there was a serial killer on the ship for a couple episodes that you didn't know who it was.
Yeah,
that would have been great. And then to carry that into the Suder arc where Tuvok hangs out with him for a little bit and they talk about like what the mind is capable of or whatever sort of process he goes through. And then at the end, his great sacrifice is he's forced to become a killer again, and then he just dies. It's like, oh, that's kind of neat. That's unusual for Star Trek.
I got so excited because they even give you that like John Wick trailer moment when he's like, Doctor, I think I'm going to have to kill some of them. And it was like, let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. I was ready for it, and it was ultimately kind of disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was hoping for more, because he does kill that one guy, but you don't see it. He just drags the body back into sickbay and is like, I had to kill him.
I loved his reaction afterwards, though. Like when he kind of had that bit of a breakdown. Like that was really great. Like I think it's a credit to Brad Dourif as an actor that as little time as you do get with him, especially in this episode, I did buy his struggle and conflict with desperately trying to be a good person and not be a murderer, but also having to kill people for to save everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, it was neat. And they do kill him off, and even I feel like the ending is rushed too, and that the only thing we get, I like the line from Tuvok. They have the thing about like, can you find peace that your life couldn't, in death can you find the peace that life couldn't provide, which I thought was nice, but it's just too quick. Like wrapping up Seska and Durov at the end is just too quick.
Yeah, that scene where Paris gives like the quick breakdown of everything that happens.
Yeah, the Cribs notes for Captain.
He was like, yeah, the doctor did blah blah blah, and then Suder managed to do the thing before they killed him, and then that was just it. Like
Janeway pats him on the arm. She's like, well, that's a hell of a thing that Suder died like that.
Yeah. And I think it's too bad, because I think a character like that deserves a bit more reverence from everybody else, and like if he deserves to be around more, I think, and have more of an effect on everybody. So when he does have this sort of redemptive sacrifice thing, you kind of buy that everybody has their own kind of conflicted feelings about it, instead of just sort of a quick wrap up at the end there. But I did like the scene with Tuvok at the end where he gives him the thing the gypsy woman says to Lon Chaney and the Wolfman after he gets killed.
I think because it would have been nice, in hindsight, there's a lot of stuff that they could have done with the serialized story. Like if Tom Paris was gone for a decent amount of time, right? His redemption,
that would stink.
His redemption arc matches Suder's, where he could come back in this episode after having been away from the ship. Like he actually legitimately left the ship for a little bit. Sure. And then his coming back matches Suder's redemption there. And you kind of get there's a little bit of a dovetailing of stories, but they didn't do either of those because of the nature of the show. And I think that, maybe we talked a little bit about the failings of the serialization in season 2 and the wrap up, but I think maybe it's just a matter of like, in a show like this, maybe it's kind of what I was talking about at the wrap up, you have to choose your serial storyline a little bit more smartly than what they end up doing. Like you have to pick the right things that make sense to be serialized, and the show can't do that with Paris. Like Paris a main cast member can't leave the ship for an extended period of time across multiple episodes. So it's just out as an idea from the start. It's not something you can do. So you shouldn't try anything that would be better if that was the idea, if Paris actually disappeared for a little while.
It's so fascinating that they can do that now, though, isn't it? Where it's like the nature of how these contracts work now. You can have someone show up for 3 episodes or 4 episodes or even a whole season, and then the next season they're only in like 4 episodes. Mm-hmm. In the case of Picard season 2, you could kill him off in the first episode and then bring him back for the last one as a hologram or something.
The Wire, like the lead character of the show, McNulty, is basically gone in the 4th season. He's just gets a new job.
Yeah. It is disappointing that they couldn't do something a little bit more interesting with that stuff. And I think all that said, though, I was surprised that Seska died, because I was not expecting this to be the wrap up to that story. Mm-hmm. Especially, you say the Kazon don't really come back after this?
No, this is pretty much it.
When does Chakotay find out it's not his kid?
I don't think he ever. I think he reviews the Doctor's holo messages or something to get that.
There was some interesting stuff in there where I wanted to know more about Seska's feelings about that. Yeah, because she seemed very surprised by that, and it seems like she was. Like,
what happened?
Well, that's what happens when you try to make a baby. Pulling out goop from someone's neck.
You get the wrong
goop. It doesn't work.
You get the wrong goop. You get confused. But did Cullen swab his neck and switch the vial or something?
I think she was actually sleeping with him.
Oh, she was actually pregnant the old-fashioned way?
I think so. I have to assume so.
Well, how can she act so certain about the pregnancy then in that case? Like
no idea. I was legitimately, I didn't think that she actually believed it, I guess.
You didn't think she actually...
Until this episode, I didn't think she actually believed that it was Chakotay's baby. I thought she was using that as a ruse.
Oh, yes, agreed. I agree, yes.
But after this, I don't know what she was expecting.
Yeah, because what was the purpose of the baby? What exactly was she doing if that's not the case?
Yeah.
It was really strange. They just chose to not wrap that up, and I can't imagine that it's actually going to come back. Maybe that's what the two remaining Seska arcs are, possibly having to do with the baby.
More. Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. That would make the most sense, yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's another storyline that kind of fizzled. I mean, what's your takeaway from Seska as a whole, if not in this episode?
I don't really ultimately know what her deal was, what she was about. She was kind of, I think she suffers from the serialization problem as much as anything else does, where it seems like they're like, yeah, we want to keep doing this, but we don't really know what we're doing with it.
Yeah.
And isn't that interesting too? Like if you compare this and the serialization of this to the way that they do this stuff now on something like Discovery or Picard, you would have everything come to a head in this giant sort of overblown finale that, like, yeah, okay, they were driving towards this the whole season, but it's not particularly interesting, I guess. But in this, it's just like I don't know that I would prefer that to what they did here.
Do you mean crossing season boundaries? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, just like, something like this would have on one of the more modern shows, I feel like would end with a much more I guess thought out is I guess I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say, but there's just something interesting to me about the way that they try to handle this sort of season arc type thing and just sort of like flamed it out versus what they do now, which is kind of overcorrect a bit by going too big a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting how with these older shows that have so many episodes, you can kind of watch them figuring out things that do and don't work, and sometimes they just kind of hit the eject button on stuff.
Yeah, they do. I mean, we're obviously not watching this in air date order, right? But I think that the thing that's frustrating, or maybe what you're kind of getting at, is that imagine this was a modern TV series that did not wrap up in the finale, but it made you wait 3 months, and then it gave you the finale, and then it proceeded with a new season. You'd be like, well, why didn't you just give me the ending last season? Why,
I think that's part of it too, yeah.
Why did it cross? Why? Because it's strange too. It's just a weird energy because you come into a new season of TV after a couple months off and you resolve that storyline immediately, and it's almost like you haven't been with it for so long. Not the case in our case because we're watching this in the streaming era, but back then it would have been, this is no best of both worlds moment where you're like, oh man, I can't wait to see how this reconciles itself in 3 months. This is just a storyline that's ending in a cliffhanger name only.
That's a good comparison as well, because you've something like Best of Both Worlds, you've just got 2 episodes, right? And so you've got your big lead in, and then you got your 3 month or whatever cliffhanger, and then you got the resolution, and so you don't feel like the resolution happening in one episode doesn't really feel out of place,
right?
But a story like this, where you are spacing it out and breadcrumbing it through the whole season, and you don't wrap it up, and then you spend 1 episode in the next season wrapping it up, it feels that much more underwhelming, I think.
And I think that's something that modern TV has learned, which is that the third to last and the penultimate episodes are used to tie up your minor stories as you move into the third episode or the final episode in that case.
Yeah.
To bring up The Wire again, like the Wire's penultimate season episodes were usually the action episodes where like a lot of stuff closes out or like the storylines wrap up, and then you close everything with the final one. So like the action, for lack of a better term, is in that second to last episode. This is not that done that way.
That stuff is really fascinating to me too, because I feel like people are still very attuned to this sort of model of TV, where it's like the last episode is where all the shit happens.
Yep.
And a lot of the better TV shows realize that, or tend to use the second to last or third to last episode as sort of the climax.
Yeah.
And then everything else is sort of following action, which is why I find the finale of Breaking Bad so interesting, because there's there's plenty of people who are like, I just hated the end, blah blah. It's like, well, no, the ending of that story is when spoiler alert, when he kills Hank. Like that's the climax of the story. Like there's no going back after that. Yeah. And then everything else is just frosting at that point. And so if you're looking at it from the standpoint of the last episode is the finale, is the final word, it could be a little bit underwhelming, because that's what the model is usually used for. Yeah. But I find it to be a little bit more interesting when they kind of space it out a little bit differently, like on The Wire or in some of the shows that do that.
Yes, it's just more mature. I mean, it's because there's a plan there, and there's no real plan for this kind of storytelling, serialized stuff. Like they have an idea of what it is, but it's a lot of, as we said before, it's just a lot of kick the can down the road until you figure out what the hell's going on. And the shows have a very low rates of actually figuring out what's going on before they get to the end of it, and then so it feels underwhelming by that point. But
yeah, one of my favorite episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer is the season finale of season 4. Which they wrap up all of the season story stuff in the penultimate episode.
Yes.
And the final episode is not even really connected to anything that happened before. Like they literally get back to Buffy's house and are like, man, that was crazy. You guys just want to watch a movie or something? And then they just put on a movie and then they fall asleep and all have these like weird dreams and stuff.
Yeah.
But what they actually use the episode for is to start laying breadcrumbs for everything that's coming in the next season.
Right.
Which at the time, watching that episode, not knowing that, you're kind of going like, this is the season. What the fuck are they doing? Why this? It feels like they forgot they had another episode to do.
Specifics of this one, we talked about Suder. I suppose I would have liked to have seen more Suder. I don't know how much. Like, maybe we can close out thoughts about him. But the planet stuff was fine for the most part, I guess.
I thought the planet stuff was hilarious. Like,
yeah.
between the weird Eagle Scout stuff and them finding Hogan's tattered remains, and Chakotay's like, Captain, this might sound a little morbid, but I could probably use this to get some water.
That was my favorite. I didn't even understand what there was no way that seemed even in the realm of possibility what Chakotay was talking about.
No idea. And then you got Tuvok. They're talking about this
Archer Tuvok is my favorite.
Archer Tuvok. Well, not even just the Archer thing, but they come into this what's the word I'm looking for? Primitive people. And Chakotay's like, maybe we should talk to them, and Tuvok is like, no, I think we should wipe them out and take their land.
And then continue to like Tuvok.
And then you've got Chakotay, who's trying to make contact with these people. And in my head, I'm like, he must be thinking, I watched my dad do this, so I know how to do it. And then he just totally makes it up on the spot.
I was caught. Did I miss where he says he's going to do that? That caught me completely off guard that he would just walk in there.
Yeah, he doesn't. They never say he's going to do it. He just does it.
Yeah, it was, and it kind of works. And he's like, "Don't look back, run." Yeah, those people are strange. Like that alien, that kind of alien race is always a little bit weird. And it does I just don't know if you were to talk to an alien, It's the same as talking to someone who doesn't speak your language. Like,
right.
I don't know if just talking slower gets your point across.
Right. Yeah.
They have no idea what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. That stuff is always hilarious to me. Like I feel like you could, I was watching that sequence and I was like, man, Darmok feels 100,000 miles away watching Chakotay go, I Chakotay, me friend.
But he's not even that simple. He's like, I have a proposal for you to consider. I will take the female characters with me, and you can reconvene with your compatriots at another location. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
If you'd like to see some paperwork or open litigation with the Federation of Planets.
Follow me. Yeah, it's just... There wasn't even any hand signals. Like, yeah, Darmok just feels like, the metaphor of Darmok feels like it's in another galaxy compared to this. But I mean, I guess you got his point across that they wanted the women. That was the undercurrent of that, I suppose. I'm not even sure.
You can keep the weird one. We want woman back.
Keep Catman. Yeah, I thought that was strange. I liked how unathletic all the Starfleet characters look running around in the desert as they're sort of running around. I will say I don't think any Star Trek show has ever done the cave dragon thing before. That felt new.
Yeah. That was interesting. I mean, the special effects are what they are, but
yes, they are.
Yeah, I
was expecting more of a trick. There's usually a trap with that where you lure the guys and the dragon eats them.
That was a strange sequence because they were trying to very quietly move around it, and then the thing woke up and ate that one guy. Chakotay was just like, fuck it, go the other way. And they just ran back towards the entranceway. I guess because somehow they must have heard Janeway and Tuvok or something.
Yeah.
Because all he says is, the entrance is clear, or something like that, and then they all turn around and run away and leave poor Blue Shirt there to get eaten.
I like they just poked the cave ceiling with sticks and it caused the cave in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually annoyed at the guy who gets eaten by the dragon because he's that dude, like when you're trying to like sneak through somewhere and someone just knocks over like the glass menagerie or something. It's like, Jesus, Dave, can you pull it together?
I did like Tuvok harnessing his inner Legolas to just start peppering that thing with homemade arrows that I'm sure did no damage whatsoever.
No, there was nothing there. Chakotay was stabbing at it with a spear, but they didn't even show. They didn't have time to render that CG blood squirting action. But yeah, Tuvok's bow and arrow is the least impressive weapon I think possible. Though he did kill that one guy. He got him in the arm at least, maimed him pretty bad. Tuvok just wants to make more weapons while they're there. That's all that needs to happen.
Who thought the bloodlust would come out on this planet for Tuvok?
I know. It's that primitive world energy going for it. I thought it was all. I honestly didn't even realize, like, the title "Basics." I guess is, as this little log line says, returning to basics. It's similarly underbaked in that I feel that there is a lot of room to explore. For me and you in the modern day, if we were stranded in a place like Tom Hanks in Castaway, like there's a big gap between what we would be able to be used to and what we're able to do. For people in the 24th century, it feels like it is like us going back to like the caveman era. It feels like I was surprised by. I was sitting there wondering, like, does Starfleet train them in this stuff at this point? Like, is there even really maybe there would be like sort of a abandoned on a planet survival courses at Starfleet Academy? It just felt so strange to me. And they were like a mix of being competent and not. Like Chakotay couldn't start the fire, sort of. So it's like, are they good at this? Are they good at surviving on the planet? Yeah.
There was that moment where he's like, I can't get this fire to start, and Jane was just like, I think the wood's too dry or something.
Yeah, she's like, what? It must be this alien wood, Chakotay. Yeah, it's not your fault, and your failed. You weren't paying attention to your father.
I did like that they had it was kind of they had a shot of the baby. And then they cut over to Chakotay being like, you know what? I just remembered my father taught me a trick. And I was like, are they going to use the baby?
I know. The blood of baby gets everything started up. Yeah, hair. It must have stunk horrible at that camp. You can't burn hair like that. And the baby is whatever. I mean, it's another thing you're surprised that, like, when Chakotay's on the planet with that other baby, Ensign Wildman's baby, that he doesn't think of his baby. There's no connection there.
Right.
Interestingly.
Yeah, you don't get a scene where Chakotay addresses that at all.
Yeah,
really.
or looks at that baby and says something. Also, Ensign Wildman would never give up the baby to Chakotay. I didn't buy that scene at all. There's no reason to let him carry the kid. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then ultimately they just forgot about Chakotay and his baby. We must see the baby, I would assume, because that's kind of sad. I don't know if it's sad. The baby's with its dad. I mean, it's sad that the baby was laying next to his dead mother.
It's sad for Chakotay because he's got. I mean, well, obviously it's sad that the mother's dead. I guess depending on whose side you're on. I guess, but it's sad for Chakotay that he thinks that now his child is out there on its own.
Well, the doctor knows, right? The doctor has to tell him. We just might not see it.
Yeah.
Which is
I would have to imagine if there's more Seska related material, it must be related to the child.
Is this going to be like there's an episode in season 6 where this is brought up again and the doctor's like, Chakotay, I completely forgot to tell you about this. But
listen, I'm sorry. There's a lot going on that day.
It continues just more of the doctor scenes. I like the doctor and Suder. I like the messages that he left for Suder. And he's like, I also left a message for Janeway to know that you died sacrificing yourself. But it's the it's continued criticism or it's a continued thing of interest to me that we've talked about before is the doctor's fear and unfear responses here. In the first part of this two-parter, he is hiding from the Kazon almost as if he's scared from them before he deactivates himself. And in this one, he's like, "You're gonna fucking break my bones? You can't, bitch. So what are you gonna do about it?" Which is the only way that makes sense. He should be that way constantly. He shouldn't have any fear of anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for him to be afraid of anything.
No. But I like that. I like that scene. I wish the doctor was more that way. But the interesting thing to me is that they more frequently play him as if he's scared of things that are going to happen.
Yeah. It's an interesting choice. Because I feel like it would almost be more interesting if he was a little bit doing his scheming with less emotional attachment to it.
Yeah, I mean because he still has. He's kind of, it would be kind of an interesting thing to write for because he still has a sort of metaphorical fear of death, which is being deactivated before he can hatch his plan, but he's not scared of threats of violence to him.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of a neat distinction that they could have played with a little bit more.
Yeah.
Anything else on this one or Tom Paris and the Talaxians?
Yeah. Well, the only thing I was weird about that was where was the rest of the Kazon fleet?
I don't know. Were they destroyed at some point? Were they just
I don't know.
Flying around?
Because Voyager flew off with a bunch of Kazon ships at the end of the last one, I thought. At least I think there were some Kazon ships left.
I don't remember. I just saw I remember Voyager leaving the planet. I don't remember if they ran into any Kazon ships. You would have thought they would. That would be something.
Yeah, I guess I was just doing the connecting the dots from there was a bunch of them when they captured Voyager. So I guess I assumed there would be more of them afterwards.
Yeah,
but so it was a little bit strange when it was just Tom Paris in his little transport there.
Listen, that ship is fucking defiant levels of warship.
Yeah.
What that thing can do, that little shuttlecraft can do.
Those shuttlecrafts have warp speed, like multiple factors of warp, and has phaser power enough to blow up a Kazon ship. I don't know if that was a big one or a small one. I couldn't really get a sense.
It was huge when the scale, when he basically did the I'll stop and you'll continue forward trick on them. Yeah.
And then it's powerful enough to basically outmaneuver and outblast Voyager when he needs to. And the Talaxians are like, our ships are nothing compared to Voyager.
Compared to this guy. Look at this shuttle this guy has. Yeah, the Talaxians. The Talaxians continued from the first part, feeling like a half thought out afterthought to this whole event. I don't know what that was. Although it's nice to see that they're not all dipshits like Neelix. They're sort of regular people. He's just an outsider in their culture. Although I found the Talaxian commander's shirt on the view screen to be distracting. It looked like he was wearing a button-down shirt. It was really, really, really odd. Basics Part 2. I guess that's it. So we'll go to Patreon thoughts right now. If you guys enjoy the content, you can support the show at patreon.com/the Pensky File. You can leave upcoming thoughts on upcoming episodes, or I guess their current thoughts on upcoming episodes. We'll read them on the show. You also get extra podcasts, etc., etc. Patreon.com/the Pensky File. The first one, Kyle Barrett. I'll actually click in your little window right now so I can send you these things. Kyle Barrett says, Basics Part 2. So after all that, Chakotay isn't the father and we don't even see him find out. What a waste of time. The planet-side action is fairly fun pulp adventure stuff of one obstacle or another, and I like the idea of the Native American character showing that the savage natives can be communicated with. What's happening on the ship is more interesting, with Suder being the hero, an arc that's pretty solid, but it would have taken more. What really struck me is how great it would have been if Paris left Voyager for real in investigations instead of it being a trick. Could have gotten a few episodes with him without him, and then from the Talaxian ship, he could have realized what was happening on Voyager and decided to come to the rescue, concluding an arc about him truly finding his worth, belonging, and sense of responsibility on Voyager. 3 lame villain deaths out of 5. I like that idea. It sounds similar to what I was saying, although I guess I was thinking I would have seen Paris. It wouldn't have just been you don't see him for a long time. I think you need to see him. But that's all this way and that. This is Poindexter G.
Basics Part 2. While it's fun to see the crew adapting to roughing it on the planet, everything with the natives starts to get a little cliche and predictable. The heart of the story is Suder and the Doctor, with Suder having to directly face his demons, knowing that he may very well lose himself in what he has to do, and the Doctor having to play the role of counselor, a role that's been shown to not be in his comfort zone. Dorff and Picardo are both excellent in their scenes together, and this makes a great compliment to Meld as a closing piece to that arc. On an aside, since they don't have universal translators on the planet, does this mean that Kes and Neelix learned English at some point, as they clearly don't know it before encountering Voyager? Great question.
Chakotay just talked very slowly to them, and they understood literally everything that he said.
Yeah,
that is a good question.
With the Suder stuff, I feel like at the very least, there needed to be one more episode or something in the middle. Like, I know there's 3 episodes, and I don't remember the second episode being super satisfying. What was the second episode?
For Suder?
Yeah.
It's just Meld where he's introduced, and then the 2 basics. These 2
episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, definitely then. Yeah. There needs, you need a 3 points. An arc requires 3 points.
He needs his middle arc, his middle.
Yes.
Yeah, third.
Yeah. There needed to be one more episode in the middle to make this work a little bit better, I think.
Because my thing about the Suder point is that I feel that there's a lot of potential, and I feel like, I don't know if Voyager is doing this or just the way that Voyager tells its stories, it makes me think that this is happening more frequently than it is. But I feel like there's just a lot of unexplored territory in the stuff that they bring up. And Suder, the thing about Suder is, I think the interesting storyline there is like, it's less about him getting better, and it's more about how do you forgive someone like him who's been, he's apparently been killing people on the crew. Unfortunately, he killed people that we don't know, so no one has any sort of like feelings about the murders that have been happening. He just killed a random crewman. So the arc that's interesting to me is that Suder does get better, but a lot of people, if this guy actually existed, would have a hard time forgiving him outside of Tuvok, right? Like Tuvok seems like he would be the one who would understand that this is all forgivable and that they can move on and that he's a better person and he's working on himself and stuff like that. But I feel like people like B'Elanna Torres wouldn't forgive Suder. And I think that the commentary is on that. It's about forgiveness for what he does and whether or not he can actually be redeemed, or if his sacrifice is not truly redemption by the end, but just like the best that he could do for everybody. I don't know. I feel like they don't take even a swing at that.
Yeah, and that's what makes that final scene on the bridge fall so flat. Is like you just don't get the sense that anybody really cares about anything, or like his death doesn't mean anything outside of what it accomplished for the ship.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's one episode in the middle there that they should have done that gets into that stuff you're talking about. I think it would have been I think it would have excuse me. I think it would have potential to be one of the better story arcs and make Suder one of the better Star Trek characters, I think, if they had managed to bullseye that middle story and really make the whole thing work.
Yeah, agreed. I like him. He's a good story actor combination. Basics Part 2 from Clef. A middling resolution to a bind with a foregone conclusion in mind. Lon Suder's the best and ignore the rest. At least we finally left the Kazon behind. 3 Maury reveals of Chakotay, you are not the father, out of 5. Changeling is our next comment. This Discord font, I find the new one so distracting, but here it is. This is Changeling.
Basics Part 2. Who would have thought it would be better to be with a depressed terrorist murderer in a crisis than a self-proclaimed survival expert? The stuff main story with Suder and Doctor is pretty good. I like especially the way the Doctor slips into his condescending season 1 tone when trying to trick Seska. I hated the planet stuff because you could take it all out and it would have no impact on the episode. It does not affect the retaking of the ship, and no character goes through any emotional change. Utterly pointless. Pour out 3 out of 5 for Hogan. He is calibrating systems with the Angels now. I thought with the pour threw me off. I thought it was pour out 3/5 for Hogan. 3/5 of what? Yeah, Hogan. I was sad to see Hogan get eaten by a monster.
It's annoying to be an actor to come back just for that one scene in your new season.
Well, I was wondering, you said you were surprised Pillar wrote it.
Yes.
I was wondering if maybe they shot them back to back or something. Like they just, because like why would you bring that guy back just for 30 seconds to kill him off?
They might have. Let me see here. I think I was reading something like that. This is all reception. This is continuity. This is effects. This is production. Oh, it was not filmed back-to-back with the previous installment. Right. Remarking on this, Jerry Taylor said, it doesn't matter because we have so much time in post-production. We can film the first 4 episodes of the next season in any order that we want. This episode was one of 4 that were filmed at the end. Wait. Indeed, this episode is one of the 4 that were filmed at the end of the 2nd season, yet intended for the 3rd season. So it was.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Oh, but they just didn't shoot them back-to-back. So they filmed a bunch at the end, but not these back-to-back with each other. That's my understanding. What? So they have 4 episodes that they filmed at the end of season 2 that they air in season 3. This and Basic Part 1 were part of them, but they did not film them sequentially with each other.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That makes sense. Sort of. Taxel Bear says, Basics Part 2, decent interaction between Suder and the Doctor, but why did they have to kill my boy Hogan? That's 2 sort of secondary crewmen gone in one episode. That aside, good to see Chakotay succeeding by doing what he thinks is right with Native American spirit magic. He's a powerful man. Aaron Million with our next comment.
Basics Part 2. The Doctor keeps this episode from being a soap opera with the baby's paternity being an issue. His interactions with Suder are good, and his subterfuge with Seska, as is his subterfuge with Seska. Fairly predictable that Suder lives just long enough to help save the ship. Question, why couldn't the giant serpent have eaten Neelix or Harry Kim? 3 rear phaser overloads out of 5. I don't know if I would agree that it's on the verge of becoming a soap opera about paternity, because it's not really, it's just that one scene, and then it never comes up again. The paternity of the child.
Which scene? The Doctor and Seska? Yeah,
there's just that one scene where he's like, yeah, it's actually not his kid, and she's like, buh? And then it never comes up, and then she's dead.
Yep. Yeah. No,
it's shocking in retrospect that they didn't have a scene on this planet where Chakotay is like holding the child at night, trying to keep it warm or something, and then reflecting on what it means to be a father to him or some shit, you know? thinking about his child in the hands of such an awful person or whatever.
No, they don't care.
Whoever,
it was
whichever writer's going through a divorce, have him write that scene.
It's no, they don't care, and they don't have anything to say about it. It was really just done as a MacGuffin, right? Like they had to have a way to get Chakotay back to them, or to bring Voyager back to them. I'm not even sure they needed that, really. They could have just had the Kazon run into them. I don't think they needed to have them go back. Patrick Seba says, Seska, not just Chief Blue Steel got under that lid. You got to keep track of with whom what you did. The end was prescribed. Surprised no baby died, but Chuckles thought hard. He's a gifted kid. 2 murdered recurring guest stars, exceeding the scripts they're given out of 5. Is that Hogan? Or Seska, I guess. Maybe Seska. Let me continue on here. Jaron Hatch. Excuse me. This cold always long to get rid of. All right, this is Jaron Hatch.
Conceptually, the idea of a stranded Starfleet crew struggling to survive on an alien planet is as solid as it gets for Star Trek. In the hands of Voyager, however, it's nothing more than a serviceable two-parter. Aside from Brad Dourif's stellar performance as Suder, the best thing about this episode is that it finally marks the unspectacular end of the Kazon on the show, something that should have happened at least a season ago. Hopefully Prodigy or Strange New Worlds gives this idea a second go, because after 56 years of Star Trek, we deserve a truly great survivalist episode. 3 nearby campers wondering what the hell kind of cultists are running around the California desert in only pajamas out of 5. At first, I thought he was saying that he hopes Prodigy or Strange New Worlds brings back the Kazon.
I thought that was too. I was
going to say no thank you, but...
Well, we did say you can reboot Voyager. No, I also thought the same. Jonathan J.K. Moore says, Basics Part 2. I just hate how during the transition from Season 2 to Season 3, the showrunners insist on killing characters because they don't belong to them. Not sure what Jerry Taylor brought to the series after removing Seska and Lon Suder from our screens, but not Maj Kulla. Such great characters. Not an episode I revisit. 2 out of 5. So maybe Taylor is the showrunner at this point. Pillar just wrote the script.
Oh, sure.
Because I'm pretty sure that Jerry Taylor does become the showrunner at some point very soon. Grappler John Zorn with the next comment.
Basics Part 2. There have been a lot of undignified red shirt deaths in Star Trek, but ain't nobody in Stovacor letting you in when you die on Neelix's say-so. If only Akuchi Moya had been there to lecture about burial rites, the poor guy might have survived. Since Hogan's death could be adequately blamed on the lameness of 2 main characters, we could call it Kafkaesque, except that everyone knows that Kafka is a better writer than this. A high 2.
I learned a lot of Kafka's writings he didn't even publish, and burned and destroyed a lot of those things. I stumbled into his history for some reason. He's only well known because after his death, one of his friends betrayed him and sent out his writing to everybody.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he didn't want any of his stuff published, and he told his friend not to do that, but his friend did, and that's the reason that we know of him now.
Because he's a real writer.
That's right. He's only doing it for himself.
Yeah, you spend your entire life creating something, and then nobody ever gets to see it, and you throw it into the fire like someone with courage.
I know a lot of writers who use subtext, and they're all cowards.
Yeah. So that's kind of similar to what happened with H.P. Lovecraft a bit. Because he was a published author and stuff, but basically his stuff was going to fall into obscurity after he died.
Yeah.
But then basically one of his friends or acquaintances or whatever started a publishing house and published his stuff in collected editions, which it didn't exist up to that point. And started making him a bit of a more household name.
Doesn't comes too late for the money, though. Yeah, there's something upsetting about that. Neelix made Hogan pick up freshly killed bones, which is funny.
And he's like, "You want me to get all of them?" He's like, "Yep, every single one of them." Like it wasn't that weird to me until he picked up like the pelvis. Yeah. That was okay. That's not something you see every day. That's pretty weird.
Why was he doing that? What did he want to do with the bones? Make a soup or something?
He wanted to use them to make tools or weapons.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Next comment is Christopher Lavelle. Chakotay is my favorite character, but damn, do they give him some stupid lines. Perspiring wastes water. Thank you, Commander. That said, I suppose it's better to be scolded for sweating than to be left alone to collect bones in front of an ominous cave. The Doctor Paris Suder moments carried the episode, but it's tough to feel too worried about the ship or crew when Michelle Barrett wraps up the last season on Voyager intro with, and now the conclusion. 3 competent Talaxians retaking Voyager out of 5.
We appreciate you listening to the coverage of this show after saying Chakotay is your favorite character.
I know. You're either very deep into Voyager or you've just started watching it. This is Royo with this comment.
Uniquely, this was one of the few episodes my family recorded on VHS, so I watched it many times as a little kid. I still have memories of being terrified with the sequences of the cave monster, especially when they have to venture directly into its lair, something to this day I would not want to do even in a video game. The idea of the pampered Starfleet
this monster
officer...
in particular? Or
just this particular monster.
Okay.
Luckily, never had to address it.
Yeah.
The idea of the pampered Starfleet officers having to survive in the wilderness with almost no... So basically, like if he got the ticket from Last Action Hero and it sucked him into his own television while he was watching this episode, then you got to face that fear, baby. But up until now, smooth sailing. The idea of the pampered Starfleet officers having to survive in the wilderness with almost no supplies was also interesting to me, and I really liked Chakotay's diplomatic approach of speaking in a non-threatening tone to the aliens, something Picard utterly failed to do with Darmok and Jalad Tanagra, since he apparently thought he could cure the language barrier with shouting.
Oh, no, I disagree.
Well,
Just stop reading this comment. We'll move on.
Well, it was written under total duress and fear of descending cave monsters.
Picard was making hand motions as he was talking. He was like, "You go there, I go here." There was a little bit more than Chakotay.
Was it like Italian mother hand motions that like even though you can't speak the language, they feel threatening?
This guy right here.
Well, no best of both worlds, and perhaps it's my nostalgia goggles, but I really like this episode because it looked like the Voyager crew were in legitimate danger, with Neelix getting crew members killed with his, quote, survival expertise, and Suder's sacrifice upping the stakes. It really helps that this episodes that they put Voyager crew out of their comfort zone, especially with Suder having to go on a killing spree 4 out of 5. So I will say, I actually really did like Chakotay's approach to them, where like I liked when he got down there and he said, even though they can't understand what he's saying, he said, listen to the tone of my voice. I mean you no harm, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's cool. That's a good line. Yeah. You know, the problem that I have, and this is the Starfleet guys on doing a survival mission. Yeah, I guess it's cool in theory, but it just feels so hampered by the production values of the show.
Yes.
Like it's very difficult for me to watch all of these characters running around in California and make it and feel any sort of legitimate stress or tension being built around will they or won't they survive in the wild. It just, it doesn't, the unfortunately the production level of the show doesn't sell this for me.
No, their uniforms do a lot of damage to me for some reason when they're in the real world. It just, in the artifice of the ship, their uniforms seem okay. When they're put somewhere and they're wearing those uniforms and they're running around, it's like these are clearly costumes. It's weird. It sticks out.
Yeah, and especially when they put them in. I mean, I know that they tried to make it an alien landscape with the volcano and stuff.
Yeah, never before seen.
But like that the costumes work in the context of an alien planet. Mm-hmm. But when you've got those costumes in what is very identifiably like the Pacific coast of America,
the
it's not quite as convincing.
No. I thought there was something about Suder here. That's not what we're talking about. I wasn't crazy about Suder's last stand, really.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
He was set up as a serial killer type, like an assassin type, and I expected a little bit more calculating kills than just he goes in with a phaser rifle and just lights everybody up.
Right, yeah. I was thinking the same thing. And then even the way he got killed, it was kind of unfortunate.
They showed you the guy in the background too. Interestingly, they show you that Kazon sort of like getting up to get his gun to shoot him.
That part was kind of interesting because I was like, okay, I'd rather they do that, and so you can feel a little bit of tension. Because I was like, oh, maybe is he going to turn and get him before he gets the shot off or something like that. But obviously that doesn't happen. But yeah, I wish they had done something a little bit more interesting with that scene than just have him run into the laser tag room and just light everybody up. Yeah.
Nick the Rat says, final comment, Basics Part 2. Hey, Hogan, you see these bones telling us to leave? Yep, better just gather them all up by yourself. Thank God Chakotay was able to turn Hogan's underwear into a water distillation factory. How dare they kill a yellow and blue shirt without one red shirt dying? After helping the stranded cave person across the lava, why didn't Chakotay put them down? They were able to walk. Did carrying them up a slight slope prove to the cave people that he was an alpha? Wish the episode was just Tuvok and Suder killing off Kazon the entire episode. Also, why did Chakotay do a tender face touch on Seska? What a cuck. 2 out of 5. Yeah,
hey, he
Suder
still had a
Tuvok.
relationship with her. You know, I mean, people are weird.
What was their relationship? Can you remind me?
I think they were just hooking up. Or
was it even that far? It went that far?
Think so. Because they were together. Yeah, because remember he was talking about like he knew her mother or something. I mean, I'm just remembering the bullshit I was making up in the show. But like, remember when they have that scene where he's talking to where they have him prisoner and he's doing that whole thing where he's like, does she still have that mole underneath her left nipple?
That's right. I remember now. You're correct.
So they definitely had some sort of romantic relationship before she turned on him.
That's it. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for leaving your thoughts and comments at patreon.com/the Pensky File. Clay, on our scale of 1 to 5, what are you going to give the season 3 premiere of Star Trek Voyager?
I'm going to give it a 3.
Sure.
I think it's a fine episode. I don't think it's a great premiere.
Yeah.
I think it actually, I kind of think it would probably be a better finale. And for all the reasons I think we were talking about before, where it feels weird to wrap this, like it has that finale kind of energy where they kind of go off at the end, you know?
Yes. All the storylines are resolved. All those characters are gone for the season. I wouldn't think it was a great premiere either if I was waiting on live TV for it. I would agree. I think it's also a 3. I thought it was fine. It was not much worse than the first one, and I thought the first one was fine, and I gave that one a 3 as well. This one just seemed competent, sort of resetting the deck, I guess, and we'll move into season 3 at this point.
You know, it's weird because I do think the last one was a pretty good finale, like as far as a cliffhanger goes. But yeah, I don't know if I would say this is a great premiere.
Yeah.
It's weird that they both of them kind of feel like they would be better finales than anything else.
Yeah. That's it. Thanks, everybody. Basics Part 2 is done. We both give it a 3. Patreon.com/the Pensky File if you want to go there and support the show. It's much appreciated. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
Badass is back, baby. And Amanda and I have started our descent into the bowels of the British Film Censorship's Bureau of the most dangerous films ever made.
Speaking of Kafka-esque, this is it.
We are covering video nasties, and we actually have, by the time as of this recording, we have not started yet, so I can't tell you what the first one is because I don't know. But we've got some, there's some Argento stuff in there, and some weird stuff like Possession with Sam Neill, and Evil Speak, which is a fun movie about Clint Howard at a military school who uses a 1983 computer to summon the devil.
Sure.
And classics like I Spit on Your Grave or Last House on the Left or, that kind of stuff. So it's going to be an interesting ride this year, I believe.
Yeah. A lot of variety there.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the variety more than anything else because the past 2 years
have not been variety.
Yeah. Stephen King was a bit more variety than Friday the 13th, but even so, you watch 12 Stephen King movies in a row, you can really kind of see all of the toys he plays with on display, in various forms. So I'm hoping this year is not just 12 months of graphic rape.
That's my favorite advent calendar.
And eyeball torture or something.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thank you for supporting us at patreon.com/The Pensky File. We're done. See you later.